In 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, igniting the deadliest war in Europe since World War II. But this wasn't a sudden act. It followed 8 years of tension that began with Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. This war is not just about two neighboring countries, it's a defining moment in modern geopolitics. For Ukraine, it's a battle for sovereignty and survival. For Russia, it's a pushback against what it perceives as encroaching Western influence. The conflict has redefined security, alliances, and energy politics on a global scale. Ukraine and Russia share deep historical roots, with both tracing their origins back to Kievan Rus. Kyiv, long before Moscow's rise, was a center of Eastern Slavic culture. However, over centuries, the two nations evolved separate identities. Russian leaders, particularly Vladimir Putin, have emphasized a narrative of Eastern Slavic unity, arguing that Ukrainian statehood is an artificial creation, fostered by Western powers. Ukrainians, however, see this as a denial of their distinct identity, forged through centuries of struggle and repression. The divergence in these historical narratives is central to the present conflict. After gaining independence in 1991, Ukraine sought to balance ties with both Russia and the West. While economic challenges in the 1990s led some Ukrainians to favor closer ties with Moscow, the country's leadership remained focused on maintaining sovereignty. Russia, meanwhile, aimed to draw Ukraine into its sphere of influence through initiatives like the Eurasian Economic Union. Tensions escalated over gas disputes, accusations of political interference, and Ukraine's growing interest in the European Union and NATO. For Russia, Ukraine's westward drift was seen as a threat to its regional dominance. The turning point came in 2014, when Ukraine's Euromaidan protest ousted the pro-Russian president. In response, Russia annexed Crimea following a disputed referendum and supported armed separatists in Donbas. This sparked a war that lasted 8 years before the full-scale invasion. Diplomatic solutions like the Minsk agreements failed due to deep mistrust. Russia increased military pressure, recognized separatist regions, and finally invaded in 2022, an escalation that turned a regional conflict into a global crisis. At the heart of Russia's grievances lies NATO expansion. Since the Cold War, the alliance has expanded eastward, welcoming many former Soviet allies and Warsaw Pact countries. From Russia's viewpoint, this expansion violates alleged post-Cold War promises and brings a hostile military alliance to its doorstep. The West counters that NATO is defensive and that membership is voluntary. Still, Moscow sees NATO's potential presence in Ukraine as an existential threat. This fear, real or perceived, has shaped much of Russia's recent foreign policy. The war has rippled far beyond Ukraine's borders. Ukraine, once a breadbasket for much of the world, saw its agricultural exports collapse, triggering food crises in many low-income countries. In Europe, dependence on Russian energy created a full-blown energy crisis, driving up household costs and inflation. Western sanctions have strained Russia's economy but haven't stopped the war. Meanwhile, global supply chains are being reconfigured and nations are reassessing trade dependencies. The conflict may be accelerating a shift away from globalization and towards strategic self-reliance. The United States has emerged as Ukraine's most important ally, providing over $170 billion in aid since the invasion. This includes sophisticated weapons systems and crucial intelligence support. But this backing comes with influence. Recently, the U.S. temporarily halted aid to press Ukraine into considering a ceasefire. The Biden and Trump administrations have taken different approaches, signaling possible future policy shifts. Ukraine's survival now hinges not just on battlefield strength, but on continued Western, and especially American support. As part of its peace push, the U.S. is pursuing economic interests, particularly access to Ukraine's critical mineral reserves. An early proposal sought a 50% stake in Ukraine's rare earth profits, which Kyiv rejected. A revised plan envisions a joint investment fund. For Ukraine, this raises concerns about being pressured into deals under duress. Critics argue that military aid is being used as leverage for future economic gain. Supporters see it as a necessary trade-off to rebuild the country and counter China's dominance in the mineral sector. Ukraine has serious reservations about the U.S.-backed peace deal. Any agreement that cedes territory is deeply unpopular and seen as compromising national sovereignty. Zelensky insists that the Ukrainian public must approve any final deal, most likely through a referendum. Trust in Russia is low given past violations like the Budapest Memorandum. While Ukraine remains open to negotiations, it demands ironclad security guarantees, not vague promises. The core concern? That a premature peace could lead to another war in the future. The road to peace remains uncertain. Russia demands that Ukraine surrender occupied territories and abandon NATO hopes. Ukraine seeks total Russian withdrawal and justice for war crimes. A frozen conflict, like Korea's demilitarized stalemate, is a possible, though unstable, outcome. A negotiated ceasefire might involve painful compromises, but a prolonged war would be equally devastating. Ultimately, the outcome hinges on battlefield dynamics, economic pressures, and the resolve of Ukraine's allies. For peace to last, all parties will need to move beyond maximalist positions and build real trust.